Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the And Whatnot podcast. Today we will be discussing the latest Marvel movie, actually distributed by Fox, but that's for a debate, um, which is Logan. But first, how are you? What's new? What's new with Adam?
Um, Not much. Again, just still working lots, and I'm still not a fan. See, the problem is the last few days, I've been busy from 8 o'clock right until 1 o'clock, and then nothing till 5. So, it's busy, 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 nothing. And so, if I could just leave at 2 when I've finished everything, that'd be nice, but I can't.
Yeah, I mean, welcome to adult life. It's you wake up, you go to work, you come back, you go to sleep, wake up, etc. Repeat.
Yeah.
So it does get a little monotonous, and just welcome to the club.
Yeah. It's not really the monotony, it's just the downtime that's annoying. If I was just busy, the entire day, it would be fine. But it's that, 4 hours that I'm just sitting there being man, I really wish I had something to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, boredom can be part of it, especially you're in an office type setting or a desk job kind of thing. I mean, even us, if we're a medical office, if we don't have procedures that day, it's kind of okay, you catch up on your paperwork, you have coffee, you chat. The day when we're kind of not scheduled already to do something, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, well, today I was kind of lucky because I did some entry for one of our bookkeeping clients, and so that took me an hour, so I only had 3 hours of downtime today instead of the usual 4. So
Isn't that fun? You wonder why there's such a drop off after 1 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock isn't a time to do taxes. That's just a 1 o'clock kind of job.
well, I'm not really doing the taxes, I'm assembling client packages.
No,
and
I mean
so,
the customers aren't coming in oh, I'm not going to come in at 2 to do my taxes. That's just ludicrous.
it's not that they're not coming in, it's that I'm not dealing with them because I'm not doing the taxes for them. I'm just assembling client packages, but I get that all done because Margaret, the person that does all the checking of the files, does it, puts the files in, my pile at the end of the day, basically, and so I have it for the next day. And so I get through all, let's say, 40 files there by, 1 or 2 o'clock, and then have nothing to do from that point on until she puts more on my pile, but she does that at, 4:30.
So it's just nothing to do in between kind of thing.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, that sort of brings me into something that I thought was kind of interesting that I heard the other day. So it's kind of a theory about how to balance your life. So basically you have sort of little columns, and you have to fill up your columns with activity. So your time is measured out of 100%, this is how you should be spending your time kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So about 50% is supposed to be your job. And whenever you're at work, or if you work from home, and anything that you can consider your main career, your main sort of income source, is your job. So that should be about 50% of your life. And then the next is 25%, which is your family, and then 10% is social, which is your friends and stuff. And then you're supposed to have 10% is hobbies. And I feel the hobbies or whatever is what I'm missing. I go to work and I'm happy with my work. I feel I see my friends enough, and maybe family could be a little more I don't see you in person very much, but it's sometimes I get home and I just watch TV or Netflix or whatever, and I'm I wish I were doing something, I feel that's my missing piece.
Yeah, I've also heard this analogy as dimmable light bulbs, but
Oh, I wonder who we heard that from.
but yeah, it is important to have a decent work-life balance. But as for hobbies, I've got video games and like TV shows. That's what I've got. I've got a rather large collection of books that I just haven't read. Like I keep being like, "Oh, here's a book I'm going to read eventually, maybe, perhaps."
And like this one that I was hearing, it's like they separate sort of fun. Like there's a fun category which is supposed to be like watching a movie because you're not like or watching TV. You're not getting something out of it per se. Like they define hobby as like you kind of keep doing it and you hope to get better. Like it's either, like knitting or playing a piano
Ah,
or like something that, or even like cycling, like you improve at it over time, something like that. Like it gives you that personal achievement. Like watching a movie doesn't give you an achievement besides like, oh, I finished that. Like
yeah.
this is supposed to be like bettering you as a person kind of thing. And I mean, I've never had a hobby. Like even as a child, I don't think I ever did anything like that. I took ballet class when I was little, but I hated it. Like, and just I was never into anything like that. So now when it's kind of like, I could take a class of some sort, or I should do something like even I don't know, like it just really struck me when I heard it of like that's it. I don't have anything that you're kind of like improving yourself with.
Yeah, I've kind of had various hobbies like that throughout the past couple of years, but it's always kind of like short-lived. So, like, I got like my bass guitar, and so like I've still got it, and I play it every once in a while, but I didn't, like, I took it seriously for a bit, but then I kind of stopped, and recently I've got into like DIY electronics, like soldering together little kits and stuff, so I've been doing that. This past weekend I tried making a little clock thing from a kit, but it was like surface mount solder, and it had a microcontroller on it with like these tiny itty bitty pins, and so I messed that one up royally, so it doesn't work.
Well, I think you need to practice your hobby more so you suck less.
Well, see, the pins that you have to solder are like a 16th of an inch, and there's 44 of them on the thing. Like, I spent like 4 hours soldering this thing together on the weekend. It plugged it in, and it didn't really function. Like,
Well, as I said, you just need to get better at it.
I know. Well, it's like the third thing that I've soldered together, and it's the second surface mount one that I've done, so.
So I guess not so bad. I mean, if you haven't been at it very long, you can't expect to be amazing at something right off the bat,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just trying to think of like stuff I can do. So I did some like running around yesterday, and I actually got like some craft supplies. It's not like an ongoing thing, but it's something that I've always like had in my mind that I wanted to make. So I'm like, I'm gonna make that, and that's what I'm gonna do. And I mean, you can kind of consider the podcast as like a hobby, but overall, in terms of like time investment, it's like we see a movie, so 2 hours, say, and then we record, and I mean, I don't do the editing or anything. Like it would probably be more in your column than in my column.
Yeah.
So it's like I maybe spend 4 hours every 2 weeks on it, if that. So it's like, yeah, it's, it
Yeah.
counts, I guess, but it's like such a small percentage.
Yeah, I'm probably like 8 or 9 hours per podcast, like invested in it. So like 2 hours for movie, hour for recording, then 4 hours for editing, another hour and a half at least for the video portion, and then however long it takes to upload that, which my upload speed's rather bad, so it takes forever. It takes at least 3 hours to upload, and that's
Oh,
on
wow.
a good day. So
Yeah, I forgot that you probably have like the suckiest internet package because like that was the condition of your roommate agreement, shall we say?
well, the download speed is fine. It's like 15 megabits per second. That's more than enough for, like, I don't do like a ton of downloading, so like downloading a movie takes like 30 minutes or something for me. That's fine. But the upload speed is like half a meg, and it's awful. So I think it would actually be faster for like you to come here, pick me up, drive back to your house, upload it from your house, than you drive me back.
I mean, I would do it if you pay me gas money.
Well, it's not that big of a deal. Usually, like, oh, well, I had been uploading it on Fridays, so it could go live on Saturday, but now that I'm working, I upload it like Friday night when I get home, watch something during dinner, and then it's about halfway done when I come back downstairs about 2 hours later, so.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like you almost can't count the upload time towards you doing something. 'Cause it's like when I say I do the laundry, you put everything in the laundry, you start watching TV, you're like, I'm doing the laundry. Like you're not doing anything.
I know, but
You're
I'm just
sitting
saying
while the
my time
machine does it.
invested in the podcast. So, like, during that time, I can't really use the internet or it slows down the upload. So I have to do something else.
That's when you can read those books you want to read.
Yeah, but
Problem solved.
seriously, I'm meaning to like get through them, but they're always like these like I want to read the Lord of the Rings series, but it's like 1,000,000 pages. I've had like Isaac Asimov's The Foundations trilogy sitting on my desk for like 2 months. I'm like 4 pages in. And I just haven't picked it up. I was like, oh yeah, I'll read this one time because like the internet went out for like a half hour. So I was like, oh, I'll go get like a drink or something. I'm like, oh, it's still out. Oh, let me start reading. Got 4 pages in, the internet came back on. I was like, okay, that's enough of that for now. So
And you're like, oh, I'm done living like a caveman. Like, what do people do before the internet? So the internet goes out. It's like, oh, it's like the dark ages.
yeah. The funny thing is, I would rather have no internet than slow internet.
Oh, yes, yes. I've seen that. Like, I can't remember if it was something on Twitter. There's like, I can't even remember the movie, but it was like some picture of Will Ferrell being crazy or something. I think it was the one in Anchorman where he's in the phone booth and freaking out. And it was like, when the internet goes out, you see who people truly are or something. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my life.
Yeah, because when you have no internet, you can deal with it. But when you have slow internet and you're used to decent speed, you're like, come on, it's taking so long. What? It's going... Ah!
Is the rage. Whereas if it's completely out, you're like, well, I guess I'll do something else for half an hour, like you said.
Exactly.
But if it's like on and off or just slow, you're like, "Wah!" Like
Yeah.
turn into a rage monster.
Yeah, also, like, the modem that I have is kind of crap. And so, like, if I'm uploading or downloading a lot, it kind of, like, craps out. So... It'll be like going fine, downloading at full speed, and then for like 2 minutes, internet dies. And then it comes back and it's at full speed for like a half hour, and then it dies for 2 minutes. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, I can see how that would be pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess there's just a few books I have like you that I want to read, but books like I really haven't read for fun since high school, which sounds horrifying, but it's like in university and whatever, you're just so intensive of like studying all the time, and like I just got out of reading for fun, and so it's hard to pick back up, even though I know I have more time and stuff now. So that's definitely an avenue to pursue.
Yeah, the problem
But
that I have with reading is that I always want to go back to the same things because I know I'm going to like them. Like, my favorite book is The Book Thief by
Book Thief.
Marcus
I
Zusak.
know.
And I've read that book, I don't know, pushing 10 times since, like, high school or middle school, something like that. Like, in, like, the past, I basically read it once a year. And so, every time I go to pick up a book, I'm like, well, I could reread the one that I know I like, or I could, like, slog through, like, 1,000 pages of Lord of the Rings and be like, it wasn't actually that good. I think I like the movies. And so, like, there's a lot of stuff that I want to read, but I'm just like, I can't be bothered sometimes.
And I tried reading the Lord of the Rings. Like Dad got me the set for, I think it was my birthday or Christmas, one of them.
It was
He got
Christmas, because that same year he
Christmas.
got me
The
the
Narnia
Chronicles
books.
of Narnia.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so I tried to get through them, but it's like I find fantasy so difficult just because like everyone has like crazy names and all the places are crazy and I can't remember who's doing what and who's going where, and it's just like it's crazy. It might be better now. Like I think I was 14-ish, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
It's like right as the first movie came out, so it's like I'm sure I would be better now, but it's like now that takes effort.
Well, Lord of the Rings also isn't probably a good intro to fantasy because it's rather dense compared to some things. So, like, there's a lot jam-packed in there, and so you're like, whoa, overwhelmed. Whereas if you kind of go with something a little lighter and get into fantasy novels, it would be better.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, who knows if I would like something different if you just dive into like War and Peace. You're probably not going to say that you like classics and stuff like that, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, so I have to like nail down sort of what I want my hobby to be.
Yeah.
See if I can fulfill that extra 10 to 15% of my life. And we're actually recording on International Women's Day. So
Hmm.
happy International Women's Day.
Oh, why thank you.
Now, so the only other funny story. So the other week I was saying, "Oh, my life is so boring. I don't have a funny story," and then the dog gets sprayed by a skunk. So I was in a similar situation this week. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Nothing really interesting has been going on in my life. So luckily, the universe always provides, doesn't it? So we're, sitting in our house one day, hear a noise, send the husband to go investigate, and I may or may not be able to confirm that there may or may not be a squirrel in our basement.
How would it have gotten in there?
I have no idea. So the only thing I can think of is because we just waterproofed the interior of the basement the end of last year. So there's like a membrane on the inside all the way from like the bottom to the top of the walls. And there's no way that a squirrel can chew through it. And there's no like holes around the windows and stuff there. The only thing that we can think of is the back part of our house is like an addition onto the original structure, and they didn't like open the foundation walls from the old house into the new part, so there's no way to get in. They just like cut little holes so that like the water pipes and the heating duct can go through the hole.
Yeah.
And on the one side of that new foundation, there's like a bit of a crack. And
Mm.
the only thing we can think of is like it is feasibly enough for a squirrel to get through. That's the only thing that we can think of.
Yeah, because if it had been during like the summer, you had like the like window down there open because you had stuff running through it, and so it would be understandable if it got in through there. But it's like the dead of winter now, so you're like, where the hell would it have come from?
Yeah, so that's the only thing we can think of. Or like there's one like little vent pipe that goes through the addition through one of the walls, and we can't see where it goes. And it used to have a little wire cap, but then the cap got blown off in the winter.
Mm.
So the only other thing I can think of is somehow that pipe connects to something, and it got in that way. But
Yeah.
I have no idea. So it's like, oh God. And most of like again on the main structure of the house, since it's so old, like our house was built in 1860. The exterior walls are just like straight brick. Like if we hang a painting or a picture or whatever on an exterior wall, we're drilling into brick. Like there's nothing between the inside and the outside really. So it's not like it can get its way through there. Like, and we're
Yeah.
thinking even if it got in the attic somehow, like if there's a hole in one of the eaves, like I don't know. But anyway, so he went to the like hardware store and got a couple like trap things, and they're down in the basement, and so far we haven't caught anything, and we haven't heard it again. And it's been like 3 days, so we're like, maybe it just crawled out the hole again. We're just, well, I don't know. So we're gonna keep a lookout.
Did you name it?
Its name may or may not be Skippy.
Respectable choice.
Yeah, I was gonna call it like Chippy, but then he's like, oh no, that's like a chipmunk name because it's like Chip and Dale. So then we had
Oh
to
yeah,
change it.
Chippy would definitely be a chipmunk. If you're gonna name a chipmunk something, might as well have chip in it. Doesn't make sense for a squirrel. Gosh.
Yeah, so then I kind of settled on Skippy. So Skippy may or may not be here. Like,
Oh, it's funny. I've actually got a funny story about Skippy. Not the peanut
The
butter.
peanut butter or
Not
the
the peanut
squirrel?
butter. Back in high school, I was in the like tech theater department, and we kind of all had nicknames. And so there was one guy, his name was Spencer, but we didn't call him Spencer. We called him Skippy. And so we were
Did
doing.
Spencer like being called Skippy? I feel like this might be a bullying story.
He wasn't particularly fond of it, but he chose it over Scooter. So
I guess if you have a choice.
they were very good choices, but Skippy was better than Scooter. But so we were, like, the dance class always did performance, and so we were working on that, and Spencer was one of the techs on it, and so we were all on the ClearCom, which is like the headset that we use to talk to the various tech locations in the theater. And so the dance teacher was also on it, giving directions and stuff. And so we were calling Spencer Skippy the whole time, because we'd been calling him Skippy for 2 years at this point. And so she thought his name was actually Skippy. So we were working on this dance show for something like 3 months, and at the end she kind of went around thanking everybody, and so she called him Skippy,
Oh gosh.
thinking his name was actually Skippy. And
Poor
so
guy.
from that point on, we weren't allowed to use nicknames. So
That's
Skippy
fair.
ruined it all for us.
I think you ruined it for Skippy is the story. Poor guy. See, also, I was never into nicknames. I never really had a nickname either, so.
Yeah, well, there was Skippy and Rusty, Radar.
What were you?
I didn't have one, actually. We didn't all have them. So
Oh, only the cool people got nicknames.
no, it was just I forget how they came about. Rusty was because he had red hair, and Radar was because he had giant ears. But he thought it was because it was named after the guy from MASH.
That's what
So
I
we
was
just
thinking.
never corrected him. He just had giant ears. So
See, there's a line of like, is it bullying if he thinks you're calling him something, but you're actually calling it for another reason?
well, he eventually found out, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So like he acknowledged that he has large ears. So
Well, all right then. Yeah, I was never into nicknames. It's like I already have a name. The worst is like, mom intentionally picked our names so that we couldn't like be shortened
yeah,
into something, Like if you're, Robert, you're going to be called Rob or Bob or something or other. So Adam and Sonia don't have nicknames except people try. Like I've been called Son and Sanj. Like my name is spelled Sonja. So I'm like, just add the A. Like you
yeah.
don't need to do that. Like it just sounds worse now. So you have no fun stories of the week.
No funny stories on my end. Haven't really done much this week, so.
All right, I guess we will move on. So the movie that we watched this week was Logan, the latest entry in the X-Men universe. And this, like Deadpool, was rated R. So how did you feel about it being rated R and all the others have been like PG-13 or whatever?
I'm very glad this had the rating that it did. If it didn't, like if it was like PG-13, like the Wolverine and X-Men's Origins was, it would have been bad. Like those other, just flat out, it would have been bad because it would be pretty much the exact same as the other ones, minus story details. But I think what made it was the action and the violence of it.
And I think by the time I was done watching it, it felt like that's how it should be. That, thinking back to the other movies where it was PG-13, it was like, oh wait, there wasn't like blood in that? Wait, no one got decapitated in those other ones? Like, and the rules for like what's PG-13 is so weird to me. Like, the MPAA rates all the movies and there's sort of like guidelines, but like no one sort of knows exactly. Like you can show violence, but you can't show like blood in a PG-13. You can't show like the actual like moment of someone's dying, as far as I know. Like you can just see like a bad guy get like flown off screen or something, but you can't actually like watch his face while he dies or something. and it's just like all these like weird rules, and like you only get like one swear word in the whole movie, and like they used up their swear words really quick if they're going for that.
Yeah.
But and I always just thought it was like so arbitrary that you can show someone getting shot, but as long as you don't see the blood or them actually dying, then it's fine. Like any logical person would conclude that if you get shot and you're in a heap on the floor, you're dead. Like,
Yeah. And like the thing with like Wolverine is basically his superpower, other than the healing and whatnot, is that he stabs people. There's blood when you stab people. Of course, it's gonna have to be violent. He stabs people. That's what he does. And so if you don't have that, you're neutering the character essentially.
yeah, and like the husband is a big Wolverine fan. Like he it's definitely his favorite X-Men. I'd still say like probably Batman is his favorite superhero, but definitely like of, X-Men, he loves Wolverine. Wolverine's top three superheroes for him for sure. And so I've just heard a lot about the comics and a lot of the backstory and all that kind of stuff. And and he always says like the Wolverine ones, the comics are just like so violent, and like that's why as a teenager or whatever, that's why you like those ones. So he was very happy that it finally like lived up to that aspect of it a little bit.
Yeah, because like I said, like Wolverine is a very violent character. Like even like his personality, he's rather gruff and tough, and he's the kind of guy that just seems violent. So
And
it
like
makes
how much he
sense.
swears in the comics and stuff too. And like if you watch the 90s X-Men cartoon and stuff, and they have to test like show him like kind of swearing but not swearing. He's like, "Hey, Bob, you better watch it," and it's just so funny.
Yeah,
Like, and so yeah, this one definitely I liked the amount of violence in it. Like there was never a point where it was gross, you know? Like it's a fine line. Like I mean, he, you know, knifes people in the face with his claws and stuff, but I never felt disgusted by it. Like,
yeah. It was never over the top. It's basically exactly the level that you expect from a guy that stabs people for a living, essentially.
And so now I looked at the box office just from opening weekend. So it was 95 million in the US and Canada combined. Worldwide is obviously going to be more, but it's like that's kind of the primary market. And I mean, this is now the second R-rated superhero entry. I mean, Deadpool was just like a wild success. Like, I mean, even if Fox didn't believe in it, they weren't going to produce it until, you know, they air quote leaked footage came out, and everyone was like, yes, you have to do this. So they finally did. And it made almost $400 million in the US and Canada alone over its run. So, I mean, probably, I don't know the number, but I would say at least 500 million worldwide during the run. So it's like they know there's a market for it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's good that they're coming out with more adult focused superhero stuff. So I think it kind of started with like the grittiness of the Nolan Batman series. So it was not gimmicky and stuff. Like it was aimed at a more adult audience. So I think that's kind of where it took off. Like Iron Man and like the early Marvel stuff as well, but to a lesser extent, I think, because it's still rated what, like PG-13 or
Yeah, I
whatever.
think they're still PG-13s.
So, like, if you think about it, like, some of the stuff they do is, like, incredibly violent. Like Captain America, he's, like, beating the crap out of Nazis, and there's explosions and gunfights, and you just see, like, a punch, and then a guy go, ah, and that's
And
it.
that's the thing is like it's not violent in the same way. Like you really see that difference between a PG-13 and a rated R.
Yeah, it's more like a cartoon violence. It's like the old Batman comics when, like, they punch someone and it goes, pow, and bacha, and stuff like that. Like, it's comical rather than
Than that
real.
realistic where
Yeah,
you have like some hard things to face when you when you're like, oh, maybe the world shouldn't be so violent, but
yeah. Now I didn't see Deadpool, so I can't really compare the two. Like it's on my like to watch list. Like I've got it downloaded. I just haven't watched it yet. So
I enjoyed it. Like I feel like I liked it a little less than the Marvel movies, like the standard, superhero fare of the day. It again, it may be because I watched it at home. I didn't see it in the theaters, whereas I would have seen all the Marvels in the theaters, so it's like you get it more of an experience. But I feel like the gore, I mean, this is just from memory from watching it 6 months ago or something, say, I feel like Logan was more like I can picture like more people dying in Logan, like, and again, it might just be the recency effect, but the goriest thing that comes to mind that I can think of right now with Deadpool is like he cuts off his own hand. So you see like his bloody stump and like you see him like sawing through his hand and stuff. And like it's actually a funny moment in the movie, but I can't even think of like a bad guy dying in a gruesome way at all. Like I think it just I think someone's head gets chopped off, but it's like again, it's comical. Like the Deadpool took the little over the top hilarious route where Logan is a little more like if someone got stabbed in the face, it would actually look like this kind of thing.
yeah,
So it's hard to compare, but it's certainly possible.
yeah.
And you know, do you think it's a good move to keep doing this? Like I'm sure not every superhero movie is going to be rated R by any means, but you have to think it does exclude the possibility of children and families going to these movies. So I mean, I would say if the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, had been rated R, it would not have made $1 billion, that's for sure, because you can't take your kids to it. So I think it's good if used sparingly.
I agree. Not every superhero movie is going to move towards this, and I'm fine with that. They don't all need to be like this. I think they just need to have one every once in a while when it makes sense. For this, it makes sense. Wolverine is a violent character. He should have a violent movie. Now, if it's like Superman, he's very against killing people, so it wouldn't make sense to have a very violent Superman movie. Like, yeah, you can have violence in a Superman movie, but it shouldn't be the main focus of it.
Yeah. And that's also like, sort of how you were saying it the little more dark tone started with the Nolan trilogy. I think DC took that and kind of went with the adult themes without the violence type of angle for their cinematic universe this time as well. Like, I mean, the main complaint that you get with the Superman movies and like Batman v Superman right now is just like how there's no joy in them. Like, can you name a funny part of either of those movies? I sure can't. Like, even in Logan, like he's kind of his own comic relief a little bit, and I I get the story that it's coming from. Like they they sort of adapted the Old Man Logan story, and we can get into that in a minute maybe, but I feel like it could have used a little more comedy. But I mean, if you look at what DC is doing, it's like, oh gosh, you need like 100 cc's of comedy stat, guys. Like you need to get out of this pit you're in. So it's like you can be adult and you can be violent, but you have to have a balance of everything.
Yeah, I think Logan was more suited for the tone that it had. Like, it is a more depressing story, kind of, and we'll get into this when we actually get into the movie proper. But I think the tone it had was fine. Like, it didn't really need lighthearted moments, because it wasn't going for that. Just the storyline of it made sense with the tone they used for the events that happen in it. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, taking that into consideration, I do agree. Like, they're not going for like, haha, everything's great at the end. Everything's, we're saving the world. Like, no worlds get saved, really.
no.
So, so it's like, I understand that. I understand where they're coming from, but it's nice to have a comic relief. It's nice to have a little break in there. But
Yeah.
so I guess before we start talking anymore, we should actually fully recap the movie. So here's what happens in Logan. Spoilers, like in case you haven't listened to any of our other episodes when we just talk about anything. But anyway, so it's currently the future. It's the year 2029, and there aren't many mutants left in the world. So we're not really told up front sort of what happens, but it's rare to come across someone with powers now. So Logan has pretty much been in hiding. He is living with Professor X in Mexico, and because it's the future, everyone has aged. So Professor X is currently in his 90s and is experiencing some sort of degenerative brain condition, so Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that. So his mental control is starting to fade, so he gets these seizures that can actually hurt and kill people. And it's kind of hinted that something like this happened and he killed a lot of people, and Logan's kind of keeping him under wraps, so they're in hiding and all that kind of stuff. And Logan's just working as a limo driver just to make some money. He's like bribing guys to get meds for Professor X and all that. So they're going about their lives, and Logan runs into this woman who says that she has to get this girl named Laura to the border to safety. So we end up finding out that Laura is a mutant, one, and there hasn't been a new mutant seen in however many years. So it's sort of a miracle that she's a mutant. And we find out that this company has been sort of genetically engineering mutant children. So they've got DNA samples from existing mutants, one of them being Logan himself. And they're, impregnating people and having babies that are mutants and raising them in this facility to teach them to be weapons. Because, the Weapon X program works so well. We just got to keep trying to make the mutants into weapons because, everything's gone swimmingly so far. So this woman used to work at the facility. She busted out all these kids. So now all these like genetic mutant children have to get to safety. And they're enlisting Logan's help to get there. And so they kind of go on this adventure, and the nurse person who worked at the facility is killed. So it's just Logan, Professor X, and Laura against this evil company trying to get her back. So throughout their fun road trip, a lot of bad things happen, a lot of violent things happen, as we mentioned. Eventually, they do get to this secret place called Eden, and all the kids meet up, and they're just about to escape into Canada when the evil company makes their big resurgence and the final battle and all that stuff. And so in addition to Professor X's neurodegenerative disease, Logan's also been having some issues of his own. It's implied heavily that the adamantium on his skeleton is actually slowly poisoning him. So his healing factor isn't working. And spoilers, he doesn't survive the final battle. So the kids all get saved, but Logan himself dies. So we're left with a future maybe of some new mutants, but pretty much all the ones we knew and loved are now gone. Sad ending.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the story overall? How do you feel the story progressed?
I think the story was actually pretty good. I don't know how closely they stuck to the source material, because this one was based on the storybook arc called Old Man Logan. And so...
I can tell you from the husband's expertise, it is absolutely nothing like Old Man Logan.
All
They
right,
kept maybe a few details from it. So,
okay.
in this movie, it was Professor X who, again, it's never discussed, and I was kind of expecting a flashback. I was expecting something or other, but it's heavily implied that Professor X's brain malfunctioned and he killed a bunch of the X-Men. In the comic book story, it's actually Logan who does this. So, the husband was skeptical because this storyline mixes a lot of other Marvel characters that Fox doesn't own. So he was wondering how they were gonna tell the story without using all the characters that they needed. So in the comic books, it's actually Mysterio, the Spider-Man villain, who manipulates Logan's brain into thinking he's seeing enemies, but they're actually his friends, and he
Ah,
just like knifes them all down. So he killed all the X-Men. And in this one, again, it's implied that Xavier basically did that same thing, but I'm like, how do you get all of the X-Men? Like, it seems odd that I don't know. It's like it just seemed weird to me that all of the X-Men were killed by him, whereas I don't know. But anyway, I just was hoping for an explanation or a flashback or
yeah.
something like that, but it kind of works a little bit more suspenseful. Like, also spoilers, Professor X dies in this, um, and so sort of like as he's dying, he's like, "Oh, Logan, like I'm so sorry. I remembered what I did because he's on all these like brain suppressing drugs and he can't remember anything, and so he's like, I remember what I did. I'm so sorry," and blah blah blah, and then oh, and I forgot to mention in my summary that there's like a full clone of Wolverine, and he kills Professor X. The clone kills Professor X.
Yes. X-24.
or as 90s Hugh Jackman, I'd like to call him. Because they like de-aged his face a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
But so they changed, like, sort of that seed is still there from Old Man Logan, but and the road trip that he takes is in the movie with Professor X, but in the comics, it's actually with Hawkeye from the Avengers and stuff. So it's everything else is pretty much different.
All right.
But I think this movie works pretty well. Like, I think it gets a little on those themes, but again, if the story's supposed to be about Logan and it's, in the comics, it's all his remorse and he killed his friends and he hasn't, a part of the thing is he hasn't used his claws since that happened. So he's hasn't been the Wolverine for like years and years and years, and he's like this huge alcoholic and all this stuff. So the alcoholism's still in there,
Yeah.
but the story centers around his own regret. So when he actually has to like use his claws again, and if I'm recalling correctly, he's fighting the Hulk. So like again, you can't fight the Hulk in this movie. So when he uses his claws again, it's like a moment of like both triumph and loss and all that. It's so a lot of that theme gets lost.
Yeah.
But I thought for the story that they're telling here, everything flowed pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt really bad for that farm family that he came across.
Oh, yes.
I was like, please not everyone die. Like, this movie should just be called Logan, everybody dies.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so it's just like, everything they come across, just everything goes wrong. I think my overall thing with the story is they could have done with a more defined bad guy. Like, I think that, let me look up who this was. What's his name? Donald Pierce is the character's name. So I think he just could have been scarier, I guess. Like, he seemed more like redneck, I'm gonna beat you up behind a bar, than he seemed like I'm actually a huge bad guy and I can ruin your life somehow. Like, I don't know. Like, he just doesn't seem that threatening to me.
Well, he was also kind of just like a hired hand, kind of, to the company as well. Like, overall, the evil global corporation is the bad guy. But
And they have like the doctor. There's always like the doctor behind it, like the doctor's in it, and all that kind of stuff. And thinking now about the end, like both the doctor guy and Pierce, both of them die, and all the henchmen and all that stuff. But that's like the company still exists, so they're still going to be doing all this like stupid mutant testing thing. And we also find out that the reason that there hasn't been a new mutant born in 25 years or whatever it is because they've been adding something to the food supply that like suppresses mutations and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, geez, like it seems too convenient. I mean, theoretically something like that could exist, but that's not like how mutations work. And I mean, it's never really explained how mutations work in the X-Men series. Like, why does a mutation give you ice powers and another one gives you fire powers? Like,
Yeah.
everything doesn't make sense, of course. But it's just like, if this is set in 2029 and there hasn't been a new mutant born, say, in 20 years, are we going to develop something in like 4 years' time that suppresses all mutations forever and no one gets cancer? That would be pretty cool. I mean, that's a pretty good trade-off. I'd give up potential superpowers for no cancer ever. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Seeing as how there aren't superpowers right now, we wouldn't really be
Exactly.
missing them.
I'd make that deal. So, sort of changing from the characters, how did you feel about the cast? So this is the reported last appearance of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, last turn for Patrick Stewart as Professor X.
I think the casting was really good. Obviously, you have to have Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart. You can't recast them, so they're no-brainers.
I mean, they're gonna want to make X-Men movies in the future, and Wolverine is the most popular X-Men. So they're probably gonna recast him eventually. Maybe in a couple years, probably not the next movie, but maybe the one after that.
Yeah. It's gonna be tough if they do. But as for the rest of the cast, I think they're alright. Laura was, I think, a new actress by the name Daphne Keane. I think this is her first thing, or apparently she was in some TV show before for like a couple episodes, but this is her first like film appearance. And I think she did a pretty good job. Boyd Holbrook, who plays Pierce, I liked him in Netflix's Narcos. He was alright in that. Stephen Merchant played Caliban, the albino mutant bloodhound, essentially. And I like him. I couldn't place him for a while, and then I looked him up on like IMDb, and I was like, oh god, I'm an idiot. That's who
That
it
guy
was.
that's in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found him a little distracting. I think like it's almost like my brain has accepted Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart as those characters like 1,000,000%. So they don't distract me anymore. It's not like, oh, it's Hugh Jackman. But like just seeing Stephen Merchant, everything I see him like, it's Stephen Merchant. Like
Yeah.
I can't not see him. So he was a bit distracting, but I think everybody else did a really good job. And I thought it was funny. So Laura, the whole, I would say like first 3/4 of the movie doesn't speak. She's completely mute. And I kept thinking to myself, like, is she gonna talk or is she just gonna be like this the whole time? And I'm like, I know that they have to, if a character says a line, if they say words, they have to pay them more. So I'm like, did they just like cheap out so they didn't have to pay this little girl any money? Like, because she doesn't actually talk, even though she's like a co-starring role. And I just thought it was really funny. So she does end up talking, and she speaks only Spanish because this like facility was in Mexico. And then eventually you also find out that she does know English and stuff. So it was just like, God, Logan's all like, damn it, girl, like we could have been doing stuff. But what I also thought, another like little nitpick, I guess, of the movie. So when they meet up with all the other kids that escaped this facility, all of them are perfectly socialized, all perfectly speak English. Like they're all like normal kids that just can do stuff.
Yeah.
And like this whole movie, we've seen her as this like weirdo who doesn't know like what movies are and doesn't know how to ride like the little horse outside the grocery store for children, and like she's made to be like this feral animal child, and then all the other kids are like, how's it going, and like completely normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of situation is this?
Yeah. One thing with Laura, I was kind of expecting it to end up being like the sun in Little Miss Sunshine, that like silent for something and then just kind of comes out and says something. So like,
Yeah.
the guy's like, fuck. in it. And so I was kind of expecting something like that for Laura, but it was not quite like that. So,
Yeah, not as dramatic a moment as that.
yeah.
But again, going by the husband as an expert, her abilities and powers were quite in line with, X-23 from the comics, except that in the comics, like she was a clone, like a gender swapped clone of Wolverine, and in
Ah,
this one, she's like basically his daughter. So I just, you know, thought it was interesting because they obviously picked mutants to sort of have offspring of with powers that are desirable to them. So part of it was like, oh, is that fire guy like Pyro's kid? Like it's trying to figure out like whose powers they're imitating. Um, and it just seems like such a crapshoot project. Because I mean, you know, genetics in general, like no one looks exactly like their parents. No one has like every characteristic of one or both of their parents or something. And especially since all these mutations are so random in general, who's to say that A, they're even transmittable? Like you had to have the same mutation in the germ line. Sorry, science. But and then it's like since they never explain how these mutations happen, they just happen and there's like hundreds of different things that can happen to you. It's just such a coincidence that the
yeah.
kid would get the exact same mutation. And like, what if two mutants had a baby? Do they have two kinds of powers or does it pick one? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know how much to add to that, but yeah, you basically hit the nail on the head there. It seems like such a stupid thing for this company to be doing, because like you said, it's a crapshoot. Like, okay, let's try making 700 of these mutant kids. Oh, 8 turned out. So
Yeah, and that's the thing of like if one of the kids born without powers, like how early do they show their powers? Like, you know, are you going to be a baby and like you can light stuff on fire or like, you know, how long until they're like, oh, this one doesn't have powers, just kill it. Like, do they kill a bunch of non-mutant baby? I don't. It just doesn't seem like an efficient type of program.
yeah,
And especially when they can then sort of like actually make like a synthetic clone of Wolverine, like head to toe. That's at least where you put your money. You stop the kid project at that point, which I guess was part of the movie. They were going to kill them all. So,
yeah.
but you think they would have had to kill a whole bunch of other babies before this?
Oh yeah, it's baby genocide up in there, but
And how did you like the use of X-24? Like he was basically Wolverine with no completely feral. Like he's just angry and crazy and just murder everyone in sight all the time.
he served his purpose. Apart from that, I don't see anything with him continuing. Like, I don't think they'll have, like, the X-24, whatever it was, in anything else, because there's really no point to it, kinda.
But you think if this company still exists, obviously, like just because you killed the doctor and a bunch of henchmen, you'd still have the technology written down or whatever. Like there's hard drives with how to create a clone on it. So I mean, there's your soldier, I guess. Like I guess you can't control him, but
I know, but are they
double-edged
going
sword.
to, like, make, like, a 20,000 person army of just Wolverine clones? That seems impractical.
Well, so is
Because
raising
if
children to be soldiers and expecting them to just murder everything too. So,
I know, but if you
it's a
can't
comic book.
control one of them, how are you going to control an army of them?
Shock collars. Ooh, you get those little clickers like dog training, and you give them little treats, and you go click click, and like
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Is it you, X-24? Is it you?
worst doggos ever. So yeah, it's at least more closer to your goal than the children.
Yeah.
But I mean, considering that the last X-Men movie was so garbage, like, did you ever watch Apocalypse?
The last one I watched was X3. I haven't seen any of the other X-Men's. So
Anyway, don't watch Apocalypse.
I
It is a
wasn't really
waste.
planning on it, but
It was horrible. And I think I've mentioned this before. The husband will be like, "Let's watch this movie," full well knowing it doesn't have good reviews and it's probably going to be bad, but like, "Oh, okay, let's just watch it and get it over with," kind of thing. And then he falls asleep in the first 10 minutes, and then I'm just stuck there watching it because he's usually fallen asleep like on me in a way that I can't get up, like a cat does, like just like on top of you, just like, and like snoring and stuff. And I'm like, great, now I guess I have to watch this. So it was terrible. It was horrifying. So don't watch it. So I mean, comparing the last X-Men movie to this one, like leaps and bounds, like so much better. And it just seems like this is how Wolverine should have been the whole time. Like he should have been able to be this violent the whole time.
actually, I should make a correction. The last X-Men movie, if you want to consider it, is 2013's The Wolverine. It's the one when he goes to Japan. I watched
Yeah.
that one.
I mean, that one was better. I mean, his solo movies like haven't been great. Like, what was the one before that?
X-Men
Wolverine
Origins
Origins.
Wolverine. I
Yeah,
also
yeah,
saw that one because that's the one with Leaf Schreiber in it.
yeah. I do remember watching it. Don't remember much of it except the like one shot of like a little sort of junior Wolverine with his little bone claws being like ah, like that's all I remember from that movie.
Yeah.
I remember I did not have a good time. So, but it is not the garbage fire that Apocalypse was. So definitely the best Wolverine movie. Definitely compared to the last X-Men, like First Class was good. Days of Future Past was okay, like, good average. So I mean, they're still hit and miss. They still haven't figured out the seamlessness the Marvel universe has. I don't think that they'll give the characters back anytime soon. Like they're not going to do a Spider-Man weekend timeshare with Marvel. Um, I think they're going to keep their toys for themselves for a little while anyway.
Yeah.
They're not going to be divorced parents and you get them on Tuesdays and I get them on the weekends and all that stuff. So,
See, you'd
um,
think that they could come to some sort of agreement, being like, if we make like a big movie, we can split it and use the characters that we have the licenses for. Or
and like,
even since like Disney now owns Marvel, they've got like $10 quadrillion or whatnot. Just buy the rights from Fox.
it just must be that they can set their asking price or just no. But because I guess they're still making steady enough income from it that they're not ready to give up yet. Where I guess like the Spider-Man, they're just like, ah, I can't do any better. You might as well. And I mean, that was something I said too. Of would you rather make, say, 25% of $1 billion if you go in all together, or would you rather make zero of $1 billion? Like, it's like Marvel's kind of going to keep doing its thing regardless. You might as well get in on it. Like, you might as well
Yeah.
get your cut. But I guess they think that they'd rather have 100% of a smaller pie than a
And like they
smaller
don't
chunk.
even have to like sell the rights. They can just like
Own.
license the rights as well.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, you can use X-Men for 3 films for $1 billion or whatever. And so they could make their money that way without actually having to invest in making the movie themselves.
Yeah. But I guess pride.
Yeah.
Kitty pride. And I think the pettiest quibble that I have with this movie that just got me when I was watching it. It's rated R, so you're allowed to see the violence. You're allowed to see a bit of sex. You're allowed, all that stuff. Did the one chick just have to flash her boobs at Wolverine in the limo just so that they could have boobs for one shot in this movie? Like it just don't. Like we're here for the violence. That's what we're here for. We're not here for 1 second of boobs. That just made me angry. And it's International Women's Day, so I'm in a mood. So it's like, really, like, could you just not? Like, who is that for? Like, the teenage boys who are like, boobs aren't watching it. Like, it's an R-rated movie. Like, they're not here right now. Can we just be adults for 5 seconds? So that made me angry a little bit. Cut that scene and I love it.
9 out of 10 with that scene, 10 out of 10 without it.
I wouldn't say 10 out of 10. I would say like 8.5. 8 with the boobs.
I don't know. I'd probably say 8.5.
But like, okay, as a guy, is that just like pandering to you? You're just like, oh, boobs for like 2 seconds, or like was that moment enjoyable for you? Like,
If I want
exactly,
to see boobs,
so no
I've got the
it.
entirety of the internet. Why would I need to go see that? Like, it doesn't detract from it, but it doesn't really add anything either.
Yeah. I see, like, you're either going to be like, whatever, or negative about it. So you might as well just not have it. I would just cut that out. So I guess that's all I have to say about Logan for now. I think the only thing I have to add, as we were leaving the theater, I just had an overwhelming urge to watch Les Mis again, to see Hugh Jackman just singing and dancing and stuff. I guess there's not so much dancing in it, but like just singing, because he's such a good singer, and like he's won all these Tonys and stuff, and I'm interested to see what he does next, because I mean he's been this character for like almost 20 years, like it's crazy,
Yeah.
and I just want to know what he's gonna do. Like I feel like they've also made him look older than he is in this movie. Like, if you just see, like, him on the red carpet or whatever, he looks good. And then here he's all, like, ragged and, like, alcoholism, and, you know, they age him up a little bit.
Well, yeah,
But
don't forget, he's also supposed to be, like, what, 200 or something crazy like that? So
that's, like, 650 to, like, actual Wolverine. But yeah, so it's like, you know, I'm interested to see what kind of character he's going to play next. Is he going to go for another action type movie? I mean, he's done the odd indie and stuff on the side, but I don't know. I want to see what he's going to do, or is this going to be kind of an end for him being an A-list, and he'll just, you know, keep working but not at this level anymore, or something like. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes.
I think my favorite thing that I've seen him in was The Prestige. And we've talked about The Prestige before, about how good it is, and I loved him in that. And so I am looking forward to see what else he'll do, because like he's been in a lot of stuff, and I haven't really seen much of it. So I'm kind of looking forward to him, like seeing what he does next.
I feel like the last one was Eddie the Eagle, about some like skier in the Olympics, and his nickname was the Eagle or something.
Yeah.
I think he was like the coach in it. But I just remember there was an interview of like Ryan Reynolds interviewing him, and they're just like joking around, and like there's so many, you know, Hugh Jackman and Wolverine jokes in Deadpool and stuff. Like, I like that relationship. So now it's like he's not going to be Wolverine anymore. So it's like, how's that going to go now? All right, well, that is a wrap on episode 10. If you have any thoughts about Logan or any other movies that you think we should review, you can send us a tweet. Our handle is @_and_whatnot. We also have an email that you can send to, which is andwhatnotpodcasting@gmail.com. So we'd love to hear any feedback or suggestions or anything like that. So until our next movie.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we're looking forward to the next 10 as well. Yay!
Woo! Woo. Oh yeah! We're double digits. Woo! I just noticed we need like little streamers, and like we should have got kazoos or something. Oh, I have some helium. I got some helium balloons in the house. I could like inhale and just get like woo! I'm not gonna do that, but I could. So happy 10 episodes.
Yeah.
To all 10 of you who listen, I think. We have as many listeners as episodes now.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.